Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we'll go ahead. If I can ask everyone to settle down, we'll begin. We'll get going with our meeting here in just a couple of minutes. Please take your seats. Okay, that was the 2-minute warning. Everybody look at it. We'll go whenever you're ready, Dan. Just go ahead and have a say, just a little bit. So somebody has to give us a little comic relief to get us started. Thank you everyone for being here this afternoon. Sorry for the late start. We went a bit over in session. We have 2 items on the agenda this afternoon, 2 presentations. As I said at the last meeting, we didn't have anything on the higher ed agenda that was part of the governor's call. So there will be no official action, but we had a great meeting, great presentations in our meeting last week. Really appreciate the university system and the folks coming in for those, and look forward to 2 more items today. Before we do that, I'm going to take a little bit of privilege here and recognize our newest member of the State House, our newest member of this committee from higher education from Savannah, the former mayor of Savannah, Representative Edna Jackson. We're going to ask Representative Jackson to limit her welcome remarks to 45 minutes this afternoon. Now, seriously, Representative, we welcome you to our committee. We appreciate you being here. She was here on, I guess you got a solid 30 minutes notice for me over there on the House floor a minute ago. So we appreciate that to do that. There was some confusion. We were trying to have lunch to make it easier for the committee to get over here. We may have misconnected with that because it was going to be here and then it was over there during session. So if anyone missed lunch, I apologize for the logistics of that, and thank the university system for helping us out with that to get us started. So with that, this afternoon now, I guess we'll go ahead in our agenda as it is presented and have our first presentation from Western Governors University. We'll ask any of you all that want to, if you choose, you can come up here to the table, Mike, and I'll just turn it over to you to introduce yourself and your group. And as you're settling in, I met some folks from Western Governors University this summer at an education conference, and they provide education degree and certification programs. I'll let them explain in a novel way. So we wanted to let them come and present to us. They have students in Georgia, they have graduates in Georgia. So with that, I'll turn it over to you for your introductions, and you can go from there.
Thank you, Martin, for this opportunity. I'm going to ask, can you hear me all right? Okay, pull a little closer. Great. All right. I'll introduce myself, and then as part of the presentation, I will introduce Danielle Gibson, who's here to my left as well. My name is Kimberly Estep. I am the Vice President for the Southeast region at Western Governors University. I have proudly been part of the WGU family for almost 8.5 years, after having spent my career in higher education, first as a history professor, and then later as a Vice President of Academic Affairs and as a provost, and then coming over to WGU when we launched WGU Tennessee in 2013. So I'm very proud to be part of this university. It is one of the newest universities in the country, being founded in 1997. So it has not been around very long, but it's done a lot in its short life. Some of you may have heard of the Western Governors Association. That is the group of governors that is responsible for the creation of WGU. That's where our name comes from. That's why we're called Western Governors University. I get asked that question a lot being here in the Southeast. People say, well, why do you call yourselves Western? Well, we started out with 19 Western governors who came together that were looking for a way to solve workforce development needs in their states. All of them had state-supported universities as well as private universities in their states, but they believed that they needed to do more to reach out to adults, particularly adults over the age of 25, who were not necessarily near one of the existing universities and who needed to be upskilled in areas that were of high demand in the workforce. So this is a very workforce-oriented university. We always have been. And we are very glad to really work within the states where we have been recruiting and educating students as part of the state's workforce solution. When I started with WGU in Tennessee, at that time, WGU had fewer than 700 students in the state. Now we have almost 4,500 students, and we have more. I think we're closing on 8,000 alums in Tennessee, all of whom are working as nurses and teachers and IT professionals, and who have changed their lives and their family's life for the better because of their work in WGU. Many states have rural populations that are not well served by the existing universities, and WGU was created in part to address that issue. We were also to address the problem that higher education tends to have with cost, and we have worked hard. We are a private nonprofit university. We are not a public entity, we're a private nonprofit entity, but we put all of our resources back towards educating students. And we've kept our tuition low. It's roughly $7,000 a year. We're also competency-based. We're the only university that is doing competency-based education in the United States today at scale. We have over 130,000 students right now that are working and learning at WGU. Competency-based education means that we hold them all accountable for meeting the learning objectives in every course in their program of study, but they can do it as quickly or as slowly as they need to. Bearing in mind that our average student is in their mid to late 30s, they are typically married. Almost all of them are working full-time or part-time. Many of them also have children in the home. So these are adult learners who need to have something that is really flexible for them to be able to study. They want to work hard. They want to complete a degree. But for many of them, the logistics of managing a 40-hour work week plus kids at home means that they've got to fit higher education into the gaps. It's really not possible for them to go and have a traditional experience, as so many of us did when we were 18 years old. If I'm a 38-year-old single mother who's working to support my family, I need a different model. So WGU was created to be that model. And I'm happy to say, after having spent almost a decade at this institution, I think WGU really does meet its mission of helping adult learners in the most flexible, supportive way possible. WGU has always been 100% online. We offer courses, students can take them at their own pace. They have a lot of support from a faculty mentor who they work directly with, as well as course instructors, learning helplines for math and for writing, all the kinds of supports you would see at any university. We just offer them at a distance, but the support services are very well done and very profound in helping students through. We offer degrees in only 4 colleges. So when I said we were workforce aligned, we were not created to take the place of traditional universities. So we don't offer the broad array of degrees that traditional universities offer. Instead, we only offer courses in 4 colleges. So you can see them right there: health professions, which includes nursing, K-12 teacher certification, our teacher education college, information technology, and business. Those are the only degrees we offer. And in each of those colleges, we offer a number of degrees at the baccalaureate level and also at the master's level. So we offer 2 levels, 4 colleges. And we're designed to produce degrees in areas that our founding governors found that existing universities were not creating enough graduates to meet their workforce needs. So that's why we chose those 4 colleges. Those have been our same 4 colleges for the almost 25 years of our existence. WGU was really designed to help adults remove the barriers that stood between them and going to college. As I mentioned, most of them are working adults. Many of them have children still at home or are caring for parents. They have multiple obligations in their lives because they are an older working adult learner. Many of our students live in rural areas. And in fact, we have students in every county of this state of Georgia and graduates in every county of this state of Georgia. WGU was designed to serve the underserved, and still 70% of our students would be classified as underserved. They either live in a rural area, or they're low income, or they're first generation, or they're a student of color, or some combination of those things. So we were really built to bridge a gap and to help adults access education with the same kind of quality and the same kind of support that we really support our 18-year-olds in accessing higher education when they complete high school. We were founded with the tenets of affordability and accessibility. When we look at the American educational system as a whole and higher education across this country, we produce about 2 million baccalaureate degrees in a given year. But also in a given year, we produce almost 1 million student loan defaults. So I think as a system, American higher education does not always work as well as it should. We're not always as efficient and as effective as we should be in serving adults. So WGU really we believe, can fill a gap that currently exists in that higher education infrastructure and can provide opportunities for learners who might not otherwise have access to higher education. Our WGU programs are workforce aligned. We work with employers. We have employer partners all over the country, including several in Georgia. Many of our employers are healthcare entities such as HCA, Grady Health System, Houston Healthcare, Meadows Regional Medical Center, Wellstar Health Centers. These entities have a workforce that needs to go back to school. They have nurses that need to come back and finish a bachelor's degree or a master's degree. They have office workers that need to learn how to use technical systems, and they may need an IT degree. They have administrators that could use an undergraduate or graduate degree in healthcare management. So those are the programs that we focus on. We also have had a wonderful pilot partnership with the Impact Church here in Atlanta to do outreach to students who are otherwise really not paid attention to by higher education. And we had a massive program where we were giving them access to a laptop, to a hotspot, giving them access to scholarships to help fund their education with WGU. And we are using that partnership as a way to fulfill our mission of educating students that traditional institutions typically do not reach. So with that said, I did want to give you an introduction to one of our alumnus. Her name is Danielle Gibson. She is a working mother of 4 who started her career in the armed forces, later came out and worked as a bedside nurse, and decided fairly recently that she was ready to teach the next generation of nurses. And she has a wonderful story, and I'd love to turn the mic over to Danielle.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. As Dr. Estep said, I'm so sorry, a little nervous. As she said, I did start my nursing career in the military. When I graduated in '93, we actually didn't, there were a lot of hiring freezes for nurses. So we're in a totally different boat now, that's for sure. But I did start in the military, which was an incredible experience for me, and met my husband, and then we moved to the South. So I've been living in Georgia now for about 21 years. I guess I've been here longer than I was up north, so I can almost count myself a Southerner. But as she said, I took some time off from bedside nursing when I had my kids, and I homeschooled my kids. And that was an incredible opportunity. And then when they got older, I went back to bedside nursing, and just felt like I needed to do more, a little bit more than kind of punching a paycheck. So I'm sorry, punching a time clock. So that's when I looked at Western Governors, because I work for a HCA down in Savannah, and they have tuition reimbursement. So I didn't want to incur any more debt in our household, since we had 4 kids going to the college arena. And ended up with Western Governors. Another huge draw for me with Western Governors was it being online. You know, as we've said, I had a whole lot of other things to do all day long and couldn't see fitting in going to a brick and mortar school. So being online, I could do my schoolwork anywhere and everywhere. I did schoolwork when I was sitting at the soccer field while my kids were practicing, and may or may not have done some while they had a game. But middle of the night, early in the morning, I even did some schoolwork on my short lunch break while I was at the hospital. So it was incredibly, it was really beneficial. I don't think I would have gone to get my master's had I not been able to do that. So Western Governors was a great blessing, and the fact that the cost was so low, it really was a low amount out of my pocket. So I graduated with my master's in nursing education back in March of this year, and I accepted a full-time position at a BSN program in Savannah in August. So I'm now teaching some new nurses, and we need a lot of them, and we need a lot of teachers for the nurses as well. So I guess that's why I'm kind of a big proponent of this program, because it prepared me very well. I actually became a certified nurse educator back in September, which there aren't a whole lot of faculty that are certified. So I was a little bit proud of that. But Western Governors really prepared me well for that. Is there anything else I'm supposed to talk about? Let's see. Did I cover all the things on the PowerPoint?
Well, you did well, and we'll give you the Southern test later to make sure that you've been here long enough to see if you should qualify for that. But
Yes, sir. Thank
here,
you.
let me volume down this here. We came in for a audio landing there. No, thank you very much. And you need not be nervous. We can splice out that part where you said you didn't want your kids to play while you were studying. So we'll take
They
that
never
right
need to
out
know.
for
I
us.
think they know.
So they're I'm sure they are. I mean, all seriousness and joking aside, I'm sure they're very proud of you being able to do that for your family, and at the same time, move forward in a career that you felt like you were led to go into, and one where you can make a lot of impact in the future. So I'm sure they're quite happy with Mom. Yes, ma'am. Please continue.
I have a couple of comments to make just to conclude, and then we'd love to answer any
Sure.
questions that committee members may have. So just to conclude a little bit by talking about adult learners, I think Danielle is a good representative of the kinds of students that we support and teach at WGU. If you look at total enrollment of adult learners across the United States, actually that enrollment has been going in the wrong direction. We really need our 18-year-olds to come into college right outside of high school, but at the same time, we need our adults also to return to higher education so that they can be skilled where the job needs are. And that's really not happening. And Georgia is one of many states in which the undergraduate enrollment of adults over the age of 25 has declined over the last 10 years by 21% between 2011 and 2019. So this is a group of learners in each state that are not always being served well, that don't always have the opportunities that 18-year-olds have. And we believe that more should be done by all states to help these learners access and afford education, because it helps the state. These are learners who tend to complete their degrees and stay where they are. Much like Danielle, they have families, they have kids in school, they have a mortgage. And so when they finish a degree, they're not going to run off to the big city and leave their community. They are going to stay in their community, and they're going to become a highly functional professional in their community, which is what we want for all of our communities, including our rural communities. Many adults who want to change their career trajectory are really hindered primarily by life circumstances around higher education. It is not easy for them to go back to school. Right now, according to the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, the state of Georgia has 11,000 vacant nursing positions that are advertised and have not been filled. They also have, according to Governor Kemp's staff, approximately 4,000 open teaching positions that need teachers who are certified in those areas. And right now they may be being filled with substitutes or teachers who are teaching out of field, but we need more teachers, and we need more highly qualified teachers as well. In states that have attainment goals, and most states do have higher ed attainment goals, it's important to remember that adult learners can be a great way to reach those goals. You don't just have to keep the pipeline of 18-year-olds flowing through. You also need to reach out to those 18-year-olds' parents who may be a generation that is just as much in need of additional education. Adult learners, we have found, bring tremendous value back to the state, particularly in rural communities that struggle to entice people to move to those counties. They can, again, be those professionals that already live there. They're already invested in that community. And when they finish their degree with WGU, they're going to stay. By growing talent within their own communities, they can retain the benefits of highly skilled workers. So thank you very much for your attention. We would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. And you do have a question. Let me, if I can give a disclaimer here for, as I sit in front of the chair. We had our university system in last week. We have our technical college system of Georgia, and the Commissioner Dozier back there is going to present to us later. Having the folks from WGU here is not to say, and then we have folks that represent our private college systems that are at this meeting, and we'll endeavor to have them either during the special session or before we go in. So having WGU here is not to say that all of those elements aren't providing great value to our students. But one thing that I have seen, and I think we have seen as a committee, is through the pandemic, what I refer to as some people want the college experience. Many people we have discovered just want to buy the education, if you will, a la carte. They don't have the time, resources, or wish to have the college experience. So my goal, and when I saw WGU at the meeting this summer, was to bring them here so that we could, as a committee, see more about the delivery mechanism and see how they do it. Make it available to Georgia, not to put it certainly above our university system, not above our technical college system, not above our private college system, but as another oft-used analogy, another arrow in the quiver of availability to folks that fit. Because if you look in your packet, when they talk about the underserved population, 74%. I mean, it's Veterans Day tomorrow. We're taking the day off so we can go and do that and honor our veterans. But 17% of their students are military affiliated, either directly or active duty directly now, or veterans. So there's just that's the reason we're here. I don't want anybody to take that I had WGU in here because the university system wasn't doing a good job, or because the technical college system wasn't, or any other reason, but just another opportunity. With that, we'll go to questions. I'm going with numbers here. I don't know who matches up yet. Number 26. Chairman Dickey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate the explanation as well, too. Thank you for being here. I just want to ask about your faculty accreditation and how you manage, I guess some healthcare workers got to have some hands-on type involvement, or some of these other degrees, just how you handle that.
Absolutely. So you asked several questions. I'll try to answer each one, but pull me back if I miss one. Faculty, we hire faculty all over the country, highly qualified faculty that work one-on-one for the most part with our students. Our course instructors will also do webinars, but we find most of our learners want one-on-one attention. And many of them live in the state of Georgia. So again, because we are not campus-based, we hire faculty everywhere. I don't remember the exact number. Emma may know of how many we have in Georgia, but it's several hundred who actually live in the state and work in the state. They work from home. They're working from home employees from us. We send them, they're set up, we train them, and then they spend their 40 hours a week working with our students. And they're wonderful. I think Danielle can probably attest to their work and how important it was to her as a student to have that access to our faculty mentors. We are accredited because our main campus is in Salt Lake City. We fall under the Northwest Commission on Colleges. So we are accredited regionally, just like University of Utah, Brigham Young University. It's just because of that, we're in that part of the country as our main campus. That is our accrediting body. Our nursing programs are also CCNE accredited. And so then did you ask one more thing, faculty accreditation?
I think he's probably getting toward the, when you finish a nursing degree,
clinicals,
clinicals.
Right.
Yes.
So our nurses and our teachers do hands-on in place clinicals when that's required by the state and by their programs. So when we say all of our coursework is online, that is true, but we do certain things that do have to be hands-on. I'll let Danielle speak to that since I think she has some experience with that.
So my experience was a little different because when it came to when I needed to work with a preceptor, that lovely pandemic thing happened. So so most of mine was online, but we do have to, at least in the master's program, we had to find a preceptor that we would have a certain number of hours working with, and actually created a course and then also delivered it to the class. And so that's at least how it worked with my program.
Thank you.
Number 25.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Of course, we know there's a severe shortage of nurses, and we hear that all the time. I'm always hearing that one reason we can't do anything about it is we can't find qualified instructors because they make more money nursing than they would instructing. And I was just curious about where you're finding your nursing instructors, and are you having a hard time finding them?
Well, I will say we, like all universities, we struggle to get, because those nurses that have master's degrees and terminal degrees can make more money out in the hospital setting, particularly in a time as now. So we do struggle to find nurses. One thing that helps us quite a bit in our nursing faculty is that because our faculty work from home and have flexibility in designing their schedule, if they want to work PRN at the local hospital, if they want to do some consulting work on the side, some research on the side, they have the opportunity with us to do that. They just work out a schedule that works for their students that they support. They fulfill that work with us, and it gives them a level of flexibility they wouldn't have if they were on a campus. But as with all universities, now is a very challenging time to find faculty. One of the things I think WSU does that is tremendously helpful to states is we produce new nursing faculty by providing those graduate degrees to bedside nurses who have the experience and now will have the degree to enable them to go in and teach the next generation, because it's something every state needs more nurse educators, which is what Danielle is. Her master's degree is in nursing education.
Are there further questions? Yes, ma'am. Please press your button so I know which one, so I can. No, yes, ma'am. There you go. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Do you have a core curriculum that is required by all of the students? And if so, how's your academic faculty selected for that?
So our undergraduate programs all do require a core of general education coursework. And of course, that has to be looked at every time we undergo review by our accreditors. We hire our core curriculum faculty, again, just as we do other faculty. It doesn't matter so much where they live. It just matters that they have the right degree. And so, if you're a psychology faculty member, we want you to have a terminal degree and we want you to be accessible to our students, but you can live in Nashville and work with students in Valdosta. And that's okay because you're doing all your work with the student in person, but at a distance.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you all for being here, sharing this information about your university. You mentioned, did I hear you correctly, that you said this is a private nonprofit school?
Yes.
Talk to us about financial aid. How does financial aid play in a private nonprofit school?
Absolutely. So most of your private institutions here in Georgia will be private nonprofit institutions. And so just like with any other private nonprofit university, our students have access to Title IV financial aid, which means if they are low income, they have access to Pell Grants. In some states, they have access to need-based grants within that state. So for example, Tennessee, which is where I live, Tennessee Student Assistance Corporation has a grant program designed for low income students that includes adults within that grant program. And our students, our WSU students in Tennessee, can also access those grant funds. In addition, they can access student loans. We are very much aware of the fact that some students take out too many student loans. And so we piloted many years ago an initiative called the Responsible Borrowing Initiative, where we give students a tremendous amount of information about debt they're taking on, which includes any debt they carry over from prior institutions, plus any debt they want to take with us. And we give them a strong recommendation to only take out the gap between what other aid covers and their direct cost of attendance, not to take out additional money for housing, for automobiles, for whatever, because we want to keep their debt low. So as a result of that initiative, our average graduate graduates with less than $15,000 in debt when they complete their degree, which is much lower. I think the average right now in the state of Georgia is $40,000.
Mm-hmm. Okay, a follow-up question, Mr. Chairman. Here in Georgia, there's a lot of rural communities, and I represent several. Are there any initiatives with your university that have nurses that are complete the program, if they go work in a rural community, there's some type of initiatives to help direct nurses into rural communities through your university?
So we don't place those nurses in rural communities, but we certainly encourage them to work in rural communities. They tend to work where they live. So if I have a nurse that's living in, Thomas County, which is where I lived for 5 years, I lived in Georgia many years ago, that student that completes with us is much more likely to stay and work in Thomas County. So the advantage we offer is they can complete a degree with us without having to uproot their family. And therefore will typically stay in that rural community and continue to practice in that rural community.
I'm going to, if I can, Representative, I want to follow up on that. And one of the reasons, and again, not to say that this model can't be undertaken by TCSG and the university system. In fact, I think we heard from the university system last week that they were headed in that direction in a pilot program to develop an online curriculum. But you bring up an excellent thing. In many cases now within our current environment, we're offering to make, loan forgiveness and whatever, if you'll go be a nurse here or there. And what you have here, based on the way the delivery mechanism that you can do it from wherever you are, the add-on or the additional availability, I think, of this where you're at, where you currently reside is, oh, gee, I'm able to do this and stay in the neighborhood that I grew up in with the family. I don't have to dislodge my children from middle school or grammar school. So that certainly, the state could help that along. But I mean, and if they tried to do that with some sort of a financial aid or something with the Rural Development Council, that I think you get sort of a double impact. You may get more than, it may be a multiplying effect, not an additive one, in that you have the availability, you have help with the funding, and you get there faster, and you don't have to move to practice where you're at. So that's one of the reasons I wanted the committee to hear a little bit about what was going on. I think, again, the pandemic told us we can do a lot more online than we thought we could. I think it further told us there are a lot of moms and dads that wished to try this without, they don't need to go back to school for the whole educational experience. They just want the education a la carte. So a great question, Representative. Further questions? Further questions from the committee? Any further questions? I have one more. Yes, sir. Chairman Jasper, the former chairman of the committee.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. Just to follow up, I'm sorry I was a little bit late, but you may have answered this question, but for on the nursing program specifically, there's, we have a license, the licensing is certain number of hours of clinical. I did hear you talk about it. Now, is that your responsibility? Are you going to line up? I see you have partners on the handout we have with Grady and Meadows and Wellstar. Are you doing that contract agreement, or is the student have to reach out?
No, we negotiate those partnerships for the students and help them place as close to home as we can for their clinical
How many
experiences.
of those partnerships do you have now?
For clinical,
Yes, ma'am.
I don't have that off the top of my head. I could get that information for you.
Okay, thank you.
Number of hospitals, not because
Yeah,
these are
just number of people. I
systems.
know it's
Yeah.
because that's the biggest struggle that,
Yeah.
TCSG, USG has
Yeah.
is trying to place.
And especially now, many hospitals are limiting how much clinical space they will allow. So like every other nursing program in the country, we struggle
I know.
and work closely with our partners to get those clinical spaces that we need.
I know it's held us back from, as Chairman knows, from expanding nursing programs in Georgia. We just don't have the clinical access at this moment. Thank you.
Questions? So no further questions. If you have anything to wrap up, or you all.
Well, we appreciate the opportunity to present. We know that that you have an excellent public and private set of higher education institutions that are all working really hard and doing incredible things during a challenging time with COVID. We did think it was a great opportunity for us to share what we have done, and the fact that we actually now have the data we provided to you is a little old because we start students the first of every month. We now have 5,021 Georgians who are WGU students, 7,630 33 alums living in the state of Georgia. So we welcome opportunities to partner with the state at any time that we can to solve workforce problems. We just wanted you to know who we are and give you an introduction to the work we do, and invite you to please stay in touch with us about ways that we can work together to solve your workforce problems.
I thank you, Doctor, for doing that. And the one thing I would reiterate again in my closing comments relative to this is what she just said is that these programs don't start on a July, January, type semester hard clock. They start when the student is ready. And one of the things that I missed the first time I heard it, and committee members may have missed this afternoon, is you move forward at your own pace. So there's places where we might have adult learners returning that may have a part of a degree, if you will. They may have some coursework, and since it's competency-based, they're able to use that coursework to get to the end of the swim, if you will, to get all the way, across the channel, where in many cases that's tough, especially if you're going within. Yeah, we do a pretty good job of that in Georgia, I think, credits across the university system and then within TSU. But if you were coming in from a different state and now all of a sudden you're in Georgia, you brought credits in from Tennessee or South Carolina, it might be more difficult. You guys have that in a competency-based area to use that. So it's just a different way to look at that. So we will keep this in mind, and we'll talk about it in the committee, and perhaps have you guys back when we gather again in January.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate your attention. We really appreciate the opportunity to present to you today.
Thank you very much, Danielle. Good luck to you and your kids at soccer and nursing and teaching and all those things you are doing is so busy. Thank you very much. We'll go ahead right now. If you all, Commissioner, if you want to come up, you can present from wherever you are comfortable, standing or sitting. I see sitting is option best for you. That's good. Absolutely. Thank you, Commissioner. You all are familiar with Commissioner Dozier. We're glad he's with us today. He's going to talk to us about the technical college system of Georgia and the good work they have done for us over the years, and how they've gotten through this tough times with COVID. I know we had you during the session last year, and you talked about how helpful the various components in the technical college system were with COVID. Y'all were a service provider as well as keeping things going for our students during that. So, Commissioner, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I do have a PowerPoint, so I'm not sure if we have that to put up or not. There we go. Couple of things, I guess. First and foremost, just really excited to come share the story, because you're exactly right. We have a great college system, 22 colleges, 88 campuses. And they are doing phenomenal work out there on behalf of this state and in each of your communities. I couldn't be prouder last year of how the colleges stepped up in the pandemic and donated PPE, whether it was masks and gloves, and every ventilator we had went to the hospitals. And if you looked at the actual transportation of those goods across the state, it was our CDL instructors who at that time was not able to actually administer the class, that then drove our trucks across the state delivering those PPE and ventilators and things like that to our communities that needed it so bad. And then when you looked at the human side of it, things that I didn't know and shared with you last year, but just as a recollection, it brings chills to my spine thinking about it. Some of the colleges had horticulture programs, and each year they sell those plants in order to reinvest in that program. And last year during the pandemic, they donated those plants to local nursing homes to really add a touch to those that were really in some dire straits. So very, very proud of our system. I hope you are. The people out there have a huge heart for changing communities. What I really want to share today is they're still doing that, but I wanted to share really the second stage of the pandemic, and that's the innovation that our people across the state have done. And I've just listed a few accomplishments as we go through this, and I'll hit a few of them. I won't hit every single one of them, but we've hit things such as the Apple iOS, Apple app development program, where we can do so many things with these app development. We've also put in an accelerated nurse aid program in the midst of this pandemic. We've looked at our adult learners. That was a group that was really hit hard during this pandemic because everything was face-to-face for our adult learners. And we added different ways to get your high school equivalency with the Hiset testing, the Career Plus. And we also implemented an online method to learn called Blackboard as the backbone. We've done some AWS programming. We've gotten a great partnership with Amazon and Ogeechee Tech on a robotics program. We've launched into some AI partnerships with the National Science Foundation, and that's actually around our adult learner. Each of them obviously do a as needed learning, a individual paced learning process. The AI is going to, as we learn more about that and create this partnership, it's going to give the speed of learning for those looking for that high school equivalency to be more direct and pinpointed on what they need to pass that test and get their high school equivalency. Very excited about that partnership. We've done some autonomous manufacturing partnerships with Georgia Tech. We've actually looked to see how we can keep our local folks in the state working for GDOT on road improvement. And we've created a civil engineering 2-year program and launched it statewide for our partners at GDOT and those contractors that work on our roads out there so that we can keep that talent. Next slide, we've hit our eCampus. We were so blessed during the pandemic to be awarded $10.4 million to launch an eCampus through the CARES Act funding that the governor oversaw. That eCampus gives us a equivalent learning across the state. So if one program is only offered in one region and not statewide, we now have a mechanism for our learners to get the education they're looking for no matter where they live. And although it's early in the stages, we had over 900 individuals enrolled in that already, and we just kind of kicked it off. I believe that's going to be a framework for the future. We've hit e-mobility, so much talk about our electrification of our vehicles. We got a great partnership with UGA there and continue to move forward on making sure we're prepared for that market as it enters our state. Great partnership with IBM, where we're actually training on their system to have folks when they get out can work directly on IBM systems. We've launched into micro-credentialing, and I'm going to skip down to one of the other ones, Strengthening Community College Grant. Both of those give us what we've been looking for, and that is shorter term non-credit programs that give individuals prior learning credit to continue their education, but gets them in the workforce quicker. And so those two items are really going to be changing in our system as far as how we make sure the workforce gets to the community quicker, but also stays educated and skills-based. A couple of other ones that we've hit, we've launched into a semiconductor partnership with Georgia Tech. As you know, much of our issues with the automobile industry relates to the semiconductors and having clean manufacturing. And so we're actually preparing for that future and know that it's coming our way. Once again, in the nursing area, we launched into a re-entry program for nurses. So many of our nurses have let their credentials expire over time, and during this pandemic have wanted to get back into nursing. And so we launched a re-entry program that gets them back into the workforce quicker and help us with this pandemic. Those are just a few of the innovative things. We do so many others, but I wanted you to hear how innovative your colleges have been out there during this last year. To give you another feel, the next slide shows you a couple of the things that I hope you see during session, and that is our Student of the Year. Miss Elizabeth Rodriguez is on the top of that slide. Elizabeth has an incredible story out of West Georgia Technical College. She graduated from the nursing program, and out of every student across the state, she was selected as the Student of the Year. And we do that by asking many folks in the General Assembly, private sector to judge our students. We don't do that ourselves. But Ms. Rodriguez, through being selected to that, Kia gave her a brand new K5. If you didn't know that Kia had that partnership, that's something I really want to share because it's a phenomenal partnership where every year they give the Student of the Year a brand new vehicle. More importantly, Ms. Rodriguez came to us as English being her second language. She grew up in a home that spoke Spanish. She really fought her way through high school. She came to us not knowing where she was going, and her story is so incredible. She graduated obviously at the top of her class. She not only graduated, but she got the dream job. She's birthing babies. I apologize. I don't know the correct terminology for that role, but she always wanted to be a part of bringing new lives into this world. And she's so excited that she's now giving a scholarship personally to each semester to a nursing student to give back. And the neat thing is through this process, her father now works for Kia. And we found out the other day that her husband, Matthew, who's pretty awesome, is working on building the new Carrollton campus for West Georgia Tech. He's on that construction crew. So I tell her she is the TCSG family. Just an awesome individual in our system, though. The 2021 Rick Perkins Award winner, that's our instructor of the year, is Miss Casey Corbett. She is over our fish and wildlife management program down at Ogeechee Tech. And Miss Casey, you'll get to meet her during session as well. Just a passion that's incredible. She has launched that program, taking it to where other colleges are now looking to expand it, but she actually trains your DNR conservation rangers. She also teaches those who are going on plantation work and many of the big land apps that are down in South Georgia to manage those large land operations, and just an incredible giver back to our system. The next slide tells you our average student, and it's a pretty cool picture on there when it pops up. We have a young man who graduated from Northwest Georgia. If we can flip to the next slide, that'd be great. Maybe there it is. But he works for SpaceX now. And I think that sometimes that's the misinterpretation of the opportunities that TCSG students are having. But just an incredible alumnus, Dusty Powell from GNTC. He is now just so proud to work for them. We're proud of him. But I wanted you to see what our typical student is. Our typical student is 26 years of age. And it's a pretty neat metric, one that I kind of watch. Last year when I presented to you, the average age was 27. And about 5 to 6 years ago, it was 33. And so one of the goals that we've all been talking about is TCSG is a first choice, or should be a first choice for many, many of our students. Over the years, I'm not sure we really got that out to everybody. And as we see that average age reducing, we're seeing more people entering the workforce and entering it early. And so at 26 years, it was actually 25 and a half, we just round up. We're seeing that average age reduce of our student, which is positive for the workforce. Having said that, we still have an average of 9 years in the workforce across our student population. So while the average age is 26, we still have quite a few students that have a number of years in the workforce that come back to us. And that makes sense because we do the WIOA training, the retraining, the upskilling, the customized training in industries. And so as you look at it, we have a very seasoned student population. We also are very proud that we are changing communities and lives and families. 51% of our students are first generation college students. And when you look at our diversity of our student, we are a majority minority. When you look at it, we're 45.3% white. And you look at the others, 37.9% African-American, 10.8% Latino, and 6 other. We, as you've always heard, we're 65% female, 35% male. We are looking to see how can we change that. We'd love to see a little more balance in that. But also we're 75 or 74% part-time, which tells you that most of our students are working while they're coming to us. So thank you. I won't speak much about hope today, but thank you for this body supporting the 17 high career demand fields that essentially is tuition free for our students. And so that enables so many students that are first generation working full-time to come back and actually change their lives and change their communities. And then the proud thing is 74% graduation rate. And when you look at placement, 99.1% placement is something proud of, but that includes somebody who's continuing their education. If you take that out and actually look at somebody that goes to work in the field they study, and think about that, not many people do that. But if you come to TCSG and you go through the welding program, you go through the nursing program, 86.8% of those that go through work in the field that they get their training in. That's pretty powerful. If you flip to the next, you'll see a global view of our student population. Last year, we served 294,881. Real quickly, going around that pie chart, 133, the largest area is our technical education, the credit programs. When you walk out, you have a certificate, diploma, or degree. 32,000, the darker blue up there, is our Quick Start program. The yellow, 27,470 is our adult educators. That one got hit pretty hard during the pandemic, and we're starting to see it increase. but we got a long ways to go. Prior to the pandemic, we had about 40,000 students. And so we really are planning on picking that up this year. If you look at the gray there, that's our WIOA funded programs. That's the federal dollars that come in for retraining or reskilling. We trained right at 19,242 in there. And the orange area is our customized training for industry. So they come to us and ask us to do some training specifically in a certain area. They may come to us, I mentioned in CDL in the meeting yesterday with rural development, somebody may come to us and say, we want a short-term program and we want to fund it to get somebody through. That would be customized training, but you don't leave with a certificate. You're leaving with a skill without the certificate. And that represented 82,575. When you look at the total population over last year, we were down 7.8%. I'll talk a little bit more about that breakdown of how far down we were. And that's on our technical ed side, our credit side. The rest of community college or vocational colleges across the nation were down about 9%. So we fared a little bit better. And I'll show you this in a slide in a minute. But if you dive deeper into our decline, most of it was in dual enrollment, which makes sense. If you think about our K-12 systems and how they struggled to figure out how to operate during the pandemic, the dual enrollment side lagged behind. We were actually down right at 30% in dual enrollment. And if you looked at our traditional student, it was just over a 2% decline. So if you look at the traditional student, we fared fairly well even in a pandemic timeframe. The next chart will give you a global look of enrollment and a global look of graduates. And as you can see, back in 2013, on the heels of the 2008 recession, we really did hit a height of 151,150 students enrolled. We really do see that as the economic times get tighter, our enrollment goes up. It's just natural. People are trying to retrain at that point because they're not finding jobs. The unemployment rate's not where it is today. We have such a low unemployment rate that really is a challenge on enrollment. But what we did really good, and this is a story I hope to paint as we look at the next couple of slides, is we really are making sure those that come to us leave skilled. If you look at this chart, we dipped down to 133,000 this past year in enrollment. But if you drop down to the graduates, we graduated 34,952 unduplicated graduates. So some of those 34,000 got multiple. They got a certificate, a diploma, degree, but this is one for one. So we had 34,000 folks that graduated. If you look at that bottom line, you'll notice there was only 2 years that we graduated more folks in that entire time frame. So even when we had 151,000 back in 2013, we only graduated 28,000 students. So in a time where we did lose some enrollment, our colleges, the presidents, the staff did an incredible job making sure those that we had touched, we made sure they left very skilled. Very, very proud of that. The next slide will break down what I just mentioned to you. It's a look at the technical ed side, the credit side. I mentioned dual enrollment was down. Dual enrollment was down 29.5%. Specifically, if you compare that number, we served 27,531 last year. The prior year, we served 35,646. The neat thing is I want to make sure everybody hears is those that we touch, we're really making sure has a vocational skill when they leave. So even our dual enrollment students that many think about just doing the math and English side while they're in high school, if you look at this slide, 32% of those enrolled in dual enrollment took a technical course while they were with us. So we gave them a touch in whether it be HVAC, nurse aid, something that had a technical side. If you drop to the darker blue and look at our traditional students, it was down 2.3%, as I mentioned earlier. We served 105,613 students. And if you dive into that 105,000, 70,997 took a program that fit in that high demand career area. And so very, very proud of the students we have. We really zeroed in on where the workforce needs are. To give you an idea, the prior year we had 108,000. Like I mentioned, we had a 2% decline. Of the 108,000, 67,000 took a high demand. So in a time where we had 2% less, we actually increased the number of students who had a touch point in our technical ed side of those high career demand field areas. The next chart shows our awards overall. I mentioned earlier, we had 34,000 unduplicated graduates. This is the total. So you may have somebody that fits all three of those buckets when you look at it. But we had 45,281 that graduated with a certificate. We had 7,750 that got a diploma, and we had 8,739 who graduated with a 2-year associate's degree. When you look at those numbers, just to give you an idea, diplomas are reducing because as we start phasing from certificates to degrees, diplomas are not as prevalent as they used to be. So we did have a slight decline year over year in diplomas. But if you look at the certificates, the prior year with 108,000 students, we had 43,243 certificates compared to the 45,000 this past year. So our colleges, once again, did a phenomenal job making sure the students were getting certificates. And then when you look at our 2-year associate's degrees, we actually had the highest number of graduates we've seen in the technical college system at 8,739. Compared to last year, we had 8,158. So they did a really, really good job. Next slide is just those unduplicated graduates again, so we can skip to a more high career demand field look. Just wanted you to know that we are increasing year over year in the areas that you get asked so much about, and I do too. So it's kind of hard to see that on the screen, but the first one is CDL, and this is the credit side only, but we had an 11% increase in the credit side. If you look at computer programming, we had a 14% increase in computer programming, in computer technology, 22% increase, in construction, 10% increase, in healthcare sciences, which incorporates a ton of different healthcare areas, we had a 7% increase. In just practical nursing, not including RN, we had a 12% increase in practical nursing, and in welding, we had a 4% increase. So our colleges are really focused in those areas that we really need the workforce. Our next slide is the last one, I believe. Yep. And this is a new initiative. We talked about adult education and how during the pandemic and really before, we launched several ways to hopefully give our adult learners the opportunity to get a high school equivalency in a multitude of ways. We used to just be a GED state. That was the only way you could get your high school equivalency. In the last 2.5 years, we've gone to a Career Plus, which is very similar to Senate Bill 5, Senate Bill 2. I don't know now, I'm going blank, but it's the pathway we've done for high school students where they can do a technical certificate, 2 technical certificates, and in several classes and get their high school equivalency. We're now offering that same thing called Career Plus to our adult learners who are out of high school. So it mirrors what we've been doing just for those that aren't in high school. We also gave the opportunity for the Hiset Test, which is kind of like the ACT versus the SAT. Instead of just being GED, we now have 2 testing modes. On top of that, last year, this body passed Senate Bill 204. Senate Bill 204 is called the Dual Achievement Program. The Dual Achievement Program allows a young person who wants to leave their high school and has completed 6 of 9 core courses to come to 5 pilots inside of TCSG to get their high school degree, not an equivalency. So we will be launching 5 pilot programs at 5 of our technical colleges to offer an actual high school diploma. That diploma, we actually will begin in 2022 at those 5 colleges. We will be, I'm just putting it out, we've asked OPB and we'll be asking you guys to support the funding for that. There was a lot of discussion last year. If you remember through the budget process, some money was put in, some money was taken out. As far as looking at this piece of legislation, as we typically always do, a piece of legislation has to be passed and signed before funded. And so we'll be coming back during this session to ask for your support in a supplemental budget of $1.5 million for this piece of legislation, and for the out year, 4.8 million, I believe, for the out year. So that's something that will be coming to this body, hopefully, and asking for support for those 5 pilots. We have high expectations out of those pilots. Just to let you know, the legislation only gives us the authority to do a pilot. If that's something that this body deems and we present evidence that it's something that we want to move forward, In the future, this body will have to pass legislation that makes it something permanent in the future. So right now, that's just a pilot operation.
You know, you've been around here long enough. We've known each other long enough. You always pique my thing. Anytime you talk about numbers that have two commas in them,
Yes,
million and a half, 4 million
yes,
in the out years, you know, that sort of thing.
little numbers, Mr. Chairman, little numbers.
Well, I'm, you know, that'll obviously go to Chairman Knight's committee directly over
Yes.
in appropriations. It's good that Chairman Knight invites me to those meetings too, though. I'm sure he's going to ask you that. And we passed the bill and we asked you guys to do it. I mean, all candor, but I'm kind of interested in that. I know there's some startup costs in doing that, but you know, at what cost is doing this with all that goes on around there? So
We
I'll
obviously,
ask you now in early
Yeah.
November. So when you come back in January, you can't say I waited too late. So I'm sure you're preparing it with that in mind. And it was something that we asked you to do, but
yes,
we
sir.
wanna
I
keep that
have
in
no
mind.
doubt that we'll have to answer a lot of questions on those numbers. Yes, sir.
yes, sir. Okay, carry on. Did number 26? Chairman Dickey, I've got you off mark here, Commissioner. Chairman Dickey.
Yes.
And thank you, Commissioner, for coming back to other members of our committee. Commissioner Dozier were here yesterday talking to our Rural Development Council about the need for CDL drivers and challenges in that. So I really want to thank him for what
Yes,
they're
sir.
doing in that area. Our supply chain is in dire need for truck drivers. So anyway, but I do have a quick question. I don't want to take much time, but our college and career academies, how y'all interact with those, how those are going. We put, Mr. Chairman, I think 3 new academies are coming this year in our state. We'll continue to fund those throughout our state. So just speak to that briefly.
Yeah. Chairman Dickey, thank you for the question. We are really a leader as far as college and career academies go, and we have a great connection in many cases across the state. We have 52 now. So we have 52 college and career academies. And when I speak to folks across the nation, I actually was on a personal trip with my wife and ran into a gentleman on the golf course, and he actually did some higher ed consulting. And we talked about the college and career academies because he had not heard of our model and he did not realize we had 52. And when we started talking about how robust our college and career academy was and how it's really connecting the dots on CTAE, really the vocational side of the house, as well as with TCSG, it's just a unique partnership that is making a difference. And I think that's one reason seeing the age go down. Specifically, that partnership is different in each and every community. So as you look at it, we're very blessed in some communities where the college and career academy actually sits on the same property as our technical college system. And we're actually able to garner really the connectivity of similar classes across both the high school as far as college and career and CTAE and TCSG all in one environment. And then others, we have a great partnership where it may not be on our campus, but we share the students and we share some of the same training. One of the things that's going to even make it more powerful is that we just signed for the first time. We've been very blessed. And I think the chairman mentioned this when we first kicked off the meeting today. We have 26 courses that we have an articulation agreement with the university system. So if you come to TCSG, those classes transition over to USG, and that partnership is, as a student may go back and forth. We have not had that type of relationship with K-12. And for the first time, we signed our first. It's a small step, but we have 4 courses now that we have an articulation agreement with K-12, and we're building more as we move forward. And how that's going to play into college and career is going to be very, very powerful. And so I don't know, I kind of stammered around, but we are very blessed with the College and Career Academy. You guys funded 3 last year. We're in the process right now of going through that evaluation as submissions have come in on those 3. And obviously, we hope that this coming session that we'll see support to continue that endeavor.
Another question, if we can interrupt you, but let me follow up on this. I was talking to the commissioner about the CDL earlier, and he mentioned to me, I think I'm going to capture this right, and then you correct me, that there's a rule going forward now that we ought to give some calls up to our friends, you know, at the federal level, that is actually about to change it so that it's going to make it harder to get a CDL. I think you may have talked about that briefly yesterday, but can you
Yeah.
just take a minute and
I-
articulate why we might want to call our federal representatives and tell them to be careful how they place further constraints and regulations on people that are trying to make a living for their family.
Yeah, I think Ed yesterday kind of talked about it more than I did, and I'm not sure if it was exactly clear, but a bill was passed quite some time ago now requiring that if you're going to get your commercial license, you have to go through a qualified class. Whereas, as you know now, I can go in and sign up and take the learner's test, and I can go and show up and take the driving test without going through a training class. It's going through the rulemaking process right now in DC, and that's what Ed was referring to in the committee yesterday, is that rulemaking process. And so as those rules come forward, depending on how they come out, it may constrict where, you're going to have to either come through TCSG, a private school, or somewhere else to actually be able to qualify to sit to take the CDL. So that's what he was referring to. There's some good and some bad in it. That's one of the things that we just need to be aware of as we move forward on that issue.
I'm just going to, like I said, my personal, we have to be careful. I mean, obviously you would think the CDL has been in place for a long time, that if you can acquire a CDL, it comes, correct me if I'm wrong here, but it has a written component and a driving component that is pretty substantial. And the fact that somebody, as you fly to Washington, you get smarter and smarter until you get inside the Beltway and you know everything about 300 million Americans. But somebody up there that makes a rule that decides you got to go to somebody's class. I mean, just look out there for somebody up there that's funding the study to be running the school that you have to go through. And that is a conspiracy theory, but I mean, it just followed the money. And the thing that bothers me about it is we ought to let people do work to their level of education and training, not their level of regulation. And that's just another level of federal regulation. So we all want our roads to be safe. We want people to do that, but to put an artificial constraint. I mean, you may well have somebody that's driven CDL for years, let it lapse, come back, and they're telling them they got to go to, a $10,000 worth of education to get their
That's why the rule
license
makes them
back
simple.
to make a living for their family in an economy where we need
Right.
people to do that. People are willing to do it. So
one of the things too, just a little trivia piece, but having come from DDS, Georgia's I'm pretty proud of this. Georgia has a long history in CDL. We actually were the very first state to implement CDL testing in the state, and that was down in Milledgeville. And so we have a pretty neat history in CDL. So something we should be proud of.
we want everybody to be safe, but an arbitrary amount of education, seat time is what
That's
we're
right.
trying to get away from everywhere else in the world. And we're fearful of that. We had two more questions. Representative Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a passion for technical schools.
Thank you.
I think they're very necessary in our state. And also, but one of the things that I'm interested in knowing is, are you recruiting and do you have working relationships with organizations that are that have youth groups in order to get them to come in and to see what is being offered? We have to always realize that every student is not going to a four-year institution, but they can, some in technical schools, sometimes you end up making more money than those of us that did go. So what is your outreach as far as churches, communities, and what have you? Being new to this committee, I'm sure you may have given this information in the past, but, and do you actually recruit?
So we, thank you. Great question. It's actually a tough question. So I'm going to answer it, but it'll have to be a little more unique based on the school to get down to the ground answer for those local organizations and how they're connected. But first, before I forget, I'd love to take you out to this body supported a bond project last year. That's the Culinary Institute for Savannah Tech.
Yes.
And it's going to be an incredible opportunity across from the Hiset down on Bay Street. that I
Mhm.
would love to, congratulations, but I'd love for you to see that because it's going to be
Thank you
very,
so
very
much.
unique. Now to your question.
Okay.
We do from a global aspect, we try to market, and I mentioned this yesterday in the committee as well, we try to market TCSG from a global aspect. And we
Mhm.
have a campaign right now that is attempted to hit really the source of what we see as what people see as barriers to college, and it's called Succeed Sooner. And the reason we label it that is we are very affordable. Hope, I mentioned Hope earlier,
Mhm.
but even without Hope, we're only $100 per credit hour. So if you look at the full-time cost of being a full-time student of 12 credit hours, it's $1,200 compared to even the cost you saw earlier in the prior presentation. So we're a very affordable opportunity for anyone. So we try to market from a global aspect. That campaign, I hope to goodness everybody is seeing it on social media. It hits social media, it tracks those that click on vocational type things. And our local colleges then also use that same campaign and hit their blitz or local areas. On top of that, each college has several VPs and a foundation. And the foundation board, as well as the local, typically VP of economic development, does a lot of global outreach. So specifically, I'll use my hometown college, Georgia Piedmont Technical College. The other day, my mother's, I was at her house and saw her homeowners association meeting. And Dr. Clark, who is our economic development VP in that area, was on the list to present to that homeowners association about the opportunities. So each and every college is really blanketing their community, their regional area, to ensure that we're marketing in the high schools to the counselors, even as low as some of the HOAs are out there that have big neighborhoods. So it's unique to each and every community. But yes, ma'am, we do try to do a great job in that area.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good afternoon, Commissioner. First, I just want you to know that your team down in Central Georgia Technical College is doing an awesome job.
Thank you.
Awesome job. In the state of Georgia, in the technical college system side, there's only 2 institutions that have programs for associate degree in mortuary science, and that's Ogeechee Technical College and Columbus Technical College. Is there any consideration of having that program in other institutions in the middle Georgia area, perhaps?
Great question. Right now, I cannot answer yes. I hate to say that. I hate saying I can't say yes. I didn't say no, though.
Okay.
But you are right. We actually only had one in the state until recently, and that was at Ogeechee. Columbus just launched it, and I'm not sure they've even started the first class yet. So that'll be our second one in the state. We have had troubles with a couple of large private, especially one private group that serves that population and breaking through on it. So as we look at the one at Columbus and it takes off, if we can see the population growing for that program, we will be looking to expand it. But at this point, I don't have a specific expansion in mind at this point.
Thank you. And I will be on South Georgia Technical College's Institute campus December 7th, I believe it is, for their
Okay.
holiday event. So I just
Perfect.
want you to know that I'll be on, December 7th, Tuesday, December 7th, South Georgia Technical College. So shout out to them for inviting me to their Christmas social.
Well, you'll be down with the Jets. They're
Yes,
awesome.
down with the Jets.
Yes.
Thank you.
I give them a plug. They're a 5-peat ladies basketball champion.
Oh, wow.
So,
Wow.
pretty
Very
awesome.
good. Very
Pretty
good.
awesome.
That's great. Thank you for sharing.
Yes.
Commissioner, I took you off your game plan there, so I don't know if you we got you in the middle toward the end.
No,
Or
I'm good.
You were.
That was it.
Okay, that didn't mean to.
Nope, that was
cut us
it.
off there. Well,
I saved the money for last because
Well,
I
yeah, there
knew
you
that.
just make sure that I didn't have a late afternoon now. I want to ask a question, and we'll wrap it up. We'll get it. Everybody give them a little of their time back. We heard earlier from the folks from Western Governors and Chairman Jaspers asked about clinicals. That's nothing new. I mean, back in 2004 or 5, around here, Chairman Bob Smith was over in the higher ed appropriations, and we were talking about building nurses.
Right.
Not being disrespectful when we say that, but that's creating the opportunity for people to get into nursing. And clinicals was an issue then; it's an issue now. So my question is, and you don't have a yes answer for this one either, because I don't know if there is one, but how do we fix that? Or not, you don't just how do we fix it, but what is a first step we can do? Because I know the healthcare systems that need them
Right.
want to help. And it seems as if we're, using the old farmer saying, eating our seed corn. We don't have enough. We don't have enough time to train people because we're busy treating people.
That's right.
Right. But at some point, how do you find, and I don't know what the answer to that is, but I mean, is it worth, and maybe this committee is not the right place to do it. Maybe it's Chairman Cooper's committee. Maybe it's a combination of a
Right.
governor putting a group together. But coming back year after year and talking about it and not at least asking you in your place. And I'll ask the folks, at Western Governors, and
Right.
I'll ask the folks in here from the university system that were in here, and the folks that represent private colleges, and then we'll go and ask the healthcare people, what can we do to get them in a room? And then you tell us what you need, because
Right.
there's got to be something to break the roadblock. I mean, if it's work, I mean, we called out our National Guard when we had the pandemic because they had healthcare folks that I'm sure were doing things,
Yep.
but could be called upon to help them. I don't know that it's that emergent, but there might be some way to utilize some operational expertise that's in the military, that just retired from the military,
Right.
that, so if you have any ideas, and again, from the university system, from WGU, from private college system of putting a group together, I'm sure we could try to help be facilitators of that, not blaming it on anybody,
No.
not putting on it, but what could we do to help?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. And I believe I was at a forum probably over a year ago where we were talking to a lot of healthcare officials, some CEOs of hospitals and things of that nature. And one of the things we got to do is take the lessons learned from the pandemic and apply it beyond the pandemic. And I think that's doable. One of the things that I would actually open to any of you, if you haven't seen it, is I'd love for you to come see the training that's done either with us or USG or anywhere. But the level of training in our nursing programs with the actual simulation is just incredible these days. And one of the things that the nursing board did do during the pandemic, and they're still allowing, and I believe that, I hope that we'll continue forward because it does help with the clinical issue, is 30% of the clinicals can now be done with simulation.
Mm-hmm.
And so as we move forward past the pandemic and we continue to look, what do? We need to figure out that delicate balance of, obviously, we don't want our nurses going out with any real life experience. I don't want personally to be in need and not have somebody that has had real life experience assisting me. But the simulation is so real now. We had an event the other day where we had students come in and we control that simulation to make them go in cardiac arrest, make them do all kinds of things. And they have to, in a simulated environment, respond based on the actions of that sim in order to bring them to life again. And sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't based on their actions, but it's a learning experience in a safe environment. And so I don't really know what that balance is as we move forward, but I believe that through this pandemic and the allowance of 30% of that clinical time to be, and I am saying that right, Ray, on 30% of the clinical time being able to use for simulation, that we're learning that that's a solution that can help us in the future with these clinical hours. The other thing is, I don't know what the right balance here is either, but it is a true thing on the nursing ratios that we have a master's level nurse to instruct, which is not a problem. I believe it's 8-to-1 ratio. And we have to figure out how we can move a program that's high cost like this and actually be able to hire those nurses with such a low ratio, which may make sense. That's not my area of expertise, so I'm not questioning the 8-to-1. I'm just saying that that's a barrier also as you're trying to compete with the travel nursing and the pay of that nature. And so as we move forward, it's a discussion that we have to continue having. And there is answers out there like the simulation answer I just mentioned.
I'll leave it then. And then Secretary of the Committee, Benton has a question, but just to follow up is, everybody wants to be safe. And I would agree with you. The simulation is one thing, and you can do that. But I would say this, the nurse that is training is on that. they know that's a simulation. And
That's
if they
right.
mess up, it's a simulation. You wake the doll back up and reset it and do it again. So there is something to be said for laying hands on a human. So
Yeah.
you're right. You can do some of it, but you don't want to be
Yeah.
the first guy. I always, you pay a lot of money to these doctors you go to and they keep practicing on you. I
Right.
want to get one that gets it right,
That's exactly right. Yeah, I hope you didn't mishear me.
No, I didn't at all. Just the late Tommy Lasorda once said he just wants to go to a doctor one time that has to put his record up like he did when he was coaching.
That's right.
81, 40 lost, 3 tied, just when you go into a doctor's office. So we not to make light of it, but I do understand that. And it goes back to, we ought to let people practice to their level of education and certification, not their level of regulation. And so as things have gotten better and electronics have gotten better, maybe some of those ratios could be modified in order to keep good quality to it. Representative Benton, we'll let you close us out for the day.
It is more of just a comment. Again, I just want to thank everyone for your support during my husband's sickness and his passing, and during his hospital time in Savannah at Memorial Hospital and at Select Hospital. And then we were at Landmark Hospital in Savannah. What I saw, the nurses were excellent, but there was certainly a big need for respiratory therapists.
Mhm.
So as we are having conversations about the shortage of nurses and creating plans to address that shortage, let's also include respiratory therapists. Okay, but that being said, all hearts and minds are clear.
The lady says that, Commissioner, if you were finished.
I am.
All right. Well, if there's nothing else, I want to thank everybody for coming. I look forward to getting out there and we'll talk to you here afterwards if anybody's got anything. But if there's no further business before the committee, we'll stand adjourned without objection. I see none. Without objection, we are adjourned.